Hello everybody. This is the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. In today's video, we are going to cover the whole chapter summary in this single video. तो उससे पूरी बुक का जो वो होता है ना, क्या बोलते हैं हिंदी में, अरे पूरी बुक की समरी, जैसे पूरी बुक का सार एक ही वीडियो में हो जाएगा. शुरू करें. लेट्स गो. चैप्टर समरी ऑफ फर्स्ट. Chapter summary. When he was 9 years old, Robert Kiyosaki and his childhood friend were not invited to a classmate's beach house because they were poor kids in an affluent school. After being told by his poor daddy's father, who was a teacher and made a good living but always struggled to make ends meet, to simply go and make money, he and his friends Mike did just that. They collected empty toothpaste tubes, which at that time were made of lead. They melted them down and used plaster molds to make confluent nickels. They were soon get straight by Robert's dad, who told them they should talk to Mike's dad, who never finished eighth grade but ran multiple successful businesses. Mike's dad, the rich dad of the book title, agreed to teach them, but on his terms. He had them work 3 hours every Saturday morning at one of his convenience stores, dusting the food packaging and cleaning. He paid them 10 cents an hour, which Robert usually spent on 10-cent comic books. Fairly quickly, Robert grew disenchanted with the boring work and low pay. When he told his friend he was going to quit, Mike told him that his dad said that would happen and that Robert needed to meet with him. Robert's dad, as a school teacher, used lectures, but Mike's dad was a man of few words and taught in a very different way, which Robert was about to find out. The next Saturday morning, Robert went to meet Mike's dad, but was kept waiting in a dusty, dark living room for an hour. He was fed up and emotional by the time he got to complain to Mike's dad, accusing him of being greedy and not showing him respect. When he said Mike's dad hadn't taught him anything despite their agreement, the business owner calmly disagreed. His rich dad explained that life doesn't teach you with words but by pushing you around. Some people let life push them around, others get angry and push against back against their boss or their loved ones. But some people learn a lesson from it and in fact welcome life pushing them around because it means they need to learn something. Those who don't learn that lesson spend their lives blaming everyone else and waiting for a big break or decide to play it safe and never risk or win big. He told Robert that he and Mike were the first people who had ever asked him to teach them how to make money. He had more than 150 employees, and though they had asked for a job, they had never asked for the knowledge that Robert and Mike wanted. So the rich dad decided to create a course that mirrored life and pushed the boys around a little. Robert asked what lesson he had learned about that. Other than this, his rich dad was cheap and exploited his workers. The rich dad challenged him on this and saying that most people blamed others when in fact their attitude was the problem. What would solve the problem? His brain, Mike's dad told him. He wanted Robert to learn how money worked so he could make it work for him. He was also glad that Robert was angry because anger combines with love to create passion, a key component of learning. Money wouldn't solve people's problem. He went on. Many people who have a high-paying job still struggle with money problem, like Robert's poor dad, because they didn't know how to make money work for them. He said that the emotions Robert had felt working for those 10 cents an hour, disappointment and feeling like it wasn't enough, was what he had felt like his whole life if he didn't learn how to learn this lesson now. He introduced Robert to the concept of taxes, explaining that the poor and middle class allow the government to tax them, but the rich don't. He asked if Robert still had a passion to learn. When he said yes, his rich dad told him he was going to stop paying him for the work at the store. He told Robert to use his head to figure it out. Robert and Mike worked for free for 3 hours, 3 weeks. Mike's dad showed up and took them outside for a talk. asking if they had learned anything yet. They hadn't. The rich dad told them if they didn't learn this lesson, they had be like most people who work hard for his little money their whole lives. He offered them 25 cents an hour, which they resisted. He upped it to dollar one an hour and then $2. But Robert stayed silent. A final offer of $5 an hour, priceless at that time, solidified for Robert that he wouldn't be bought. The rich dad said that it was good they didn't have a price. Most people did because their lives are controlled by fear and greed. Fear of being without makes them work hard and earn a paycheck, but once they have the money, greed gets them thinking about the things they could buy. All the things they could buy, which makes them need more money, which makes them spend more. It's what the rich dad called the rat race. He told the boys that the first step was admitting to themselves what they were feeling. Too often, people reacted to their emotion instead of thinking logically. They are afraid to admit money is running their lives, and so many money controls them. It's not just the poor who face the fear. The rich often operate from a place of fear. He wanted to teach the boys to not just the rich, just be rich because money doesn't solve the problem. School is important, he told them, but for most people, it's the end, not the beginning. And the key for the boys was to learn to use their emotions to think, not to think with their emotions. They must learn to choose their thoughts. He told them to keep an eye out for ways to make money, saying the moment you see one opportunity, you will see them for the rest of your life. The boys did, and soon they saw an opportunity in creating a library where kids could pay an admission fee and read as many comic books as they could in 2 hours. Unsold comic books that otherwise wouldn't have been thrown away from the convenience store. They made a great profit, and the business did well for about 3 months until a fight in the library shut it down. But they had learned the first lesson of making money work for them. Even when they were not physically present, they were ready to learn more, and Mike's dad was ready to teach them. Chapter 2. We revisit Robert and Mike some 3.5 decades later. Mike has taken over his father's company and is doing an even better job than the rich dad did. As for Robert, he retired in 1994 at the age of 47. His wife's wealth is growing automatically like a well established tree. He shares his story of 1923 meeting of some of the greatest leaders and rich businessmen. Men who owned the largest steel and gas company, who ran the New York Stock Exchange (NYSE), and who sat on President Harding's cabinet. 25 years later, most of their lives had ended tragically when the men either broke, exiled, or in prison. The 1929 stock crash and Great Depression likely played a part in their fates. But today, we live in a time of even more turmoil and change than they did. More people than money to our survival is our education and the ability to learn. It's not how much you make, but how much you keep and how many generations you keep it. So when people ask Robert where to start getting rich, he gives them the same answer his rich dad gave him. If you want to be rich, you need to be financially literate. Robert compares the way many people act to building a skyscraper on a slab made for a small home, because kids graduate school with the little financial education they launch into their adults' lives chasing the American dream but find themselves deep in debt. The only way out that they can see is a rich get rich strategy. But without having that financial literacy background, their efforts are like building a skyscraper on a weak foundation. And instead of creating the Empire State Building, they end up with the leaning tower of Suburbia. Robert and his childhood friend Mike, however, were given a strong foundation worthy of a skyscraper thanks to the teaching of his rich dad. Counting as a subject is boring, confusing, and absolutely crucial to financial success. To make it accessible to kids, Rich Dad used pictures to teach it to the two boys. Only later did he start adding numbers to guide the boys through key concepts. Rule number one, Robert says, is that you must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and only buy assets. That's all you need to know. But despite it being so simple, it's something that many people don't understand. When Rich Dad first explained it to the new Two now teenagers, they thought he was kidding. How could adults not understand this? Shouldn't everyone be rich? The problem is that most people have been educated differently by bankers, financial planners, and others, so they must unlearn what they think they know. Some find this demeaning to return to such a basic introduction. The true definition of asset and liability lie not in words but in numbers. Robert uses drawings to help readers the same way Rich Dad used them to help him. This is the cash flow pattern of an asset. Top part of the diagram is an income statement, often called a profit and loss statement. It measures income and expenses, money in and money out. The lower part of the diagram is a balance sheet. It's called that because it's supposed to balance assets against liabilities. Assets income, liabilities expenses go. Assets add to your income, they put money in your pocket. This is the cash flow pattern of a liability. Liability takes money out of your pocket. Want to be rich, buys assets. It seems simple, but so many people struggle because they buy liabilities. If you want to gain and maintain wealth, you must build your understanding. It's not just straight numbers, it's how the numbers tell a story. Follow the arrows in each of diagrams to see where the money is flowing or cash flow. It will tell the story, the plot of that financial situation. Poor person, job, salary, expenses done. Middle class, job, income, liabilities, expenses done. Wealthy person, assets, income, repeat. So these simplified diagram, the cash flow tells the story of how each person handles money. Often those in debt think the answer is to make more money, but not only will more money not always solve their problems, it may compound them. It's why many people who get a sudden windfall through the lottery or an inheritance, for instance, so quickly burn through it. An increase in cash only results in an increase in spending. What is missing for so many people is a financial education. It's why they might end up successful in their profession but still struggling with money. They may have learned how to make money but not how to manage it. People can be very intelligent and still be illiterate when it comes to finances. They learned how to work hard for money but not how to make their money work hard for them. Robert tells the story of a young couple who get married and start their lives together. Their incomes begin to increase, but so do their expenses. The couple is hit with the number one expense for most people, taxes, and for many people, it's not income tax that gives the biggest hits, but social security. It's roughly 15% social security tax combined with the Medicare tax rate, all of which must be matched with by the employer. Funds that the employer now can't pay the worker, and the employee is charged income tax on that amount too. The young couple is faced with those taxes, and when they buy a house, property tax, and to go with the new house is a new car, new furniture, and new appliances. Suddenly their liabilities go up, filling with mortgages and credit card debt. The couple is trapped in the rat race. Add a baby to the mix and they work harder. Higher incomes that lead to higher taxes, they combine to rack up debt, eventually rolling it into their mortgages in a consolidation loan, but their habits haven't changed, so the credit card debt continues. Not to mention, they extended their home loan. For this couple and so many like them, their true problem is not knowing how to handle the money they have. It's caused by financial illiteracy and not understanding the true difference between an asset and a liability. So many people don't take the time to question whether something makes sense and simply follow the crowd. Often they mindlessly repeat what they have been told. Diversify, your home is an asset. You get a tax break for going into greater depth. Get a safe job. Don't make mistake. Don't take risk. Because of the large amount of time Robert and Mike spent sitting in on meeting with Rich Dad and learning from the intelligent people he surrounded himself with, they learned a lot and learned to question the standard dogma taught in at their school. It began to cause problem and made them grow distant from their teachers. Robert also began disagreeing with his own father over money matters, especially when it comes to the poor dad's view that his home was his greatest investment. In contrast, rich dads saw his home as a liability. Many people still believe that their home is an asset, but Robert teaches that a home is a liability because it takes money out of your pocket, not only with the taxes and expenses, but because of its loss in value and the opportunities missed. All your money is laid up in your house, and that causes you to lose out on the education of investment experience. That doesn't mean you can't even buy a bigger home. house, but make sure to first buy assets that will generate the cash flow to pay for the house. When there are enough assets to generate more than enough income to cover expenses, the balance is reinvested into assets, which grows the asset column on a balance sheet, which produces more income. The result is that the rich who understand the difference between assets and liabilities gets richer. The middle class gets stuck in the rat race because they treat their home as an asset instead of investing in income producing assets. They are also stuck because their salary is the primary source of income, and thus, when their income increases, so do their taxes. Many invest in mutual fund, paying a manager to handle their accounts because they don't have the time or the expertise to do it themselves. They feel like a mutual fund is playing it safe, and they don't and they have to play it safe because their balance sheet are not balanced. They can't take advantage of opportunities because they are maxed out on debt and only have their salaries bringing money in. Want to grow rich? Concentrate your efforts on buying income producing assets. When to truly understand what an asset is, keep liabilities and expenses low. You will your asset column deepen your asset column. So how do you know when you are wealthy? Robert uses a definition by R. Buckminster Fuller. Wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward, or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive? Another way of stating it, wealth is a measure of the cash flow from the asset column compared with the expense column. When your assets generate enough income to cover your expenses, you are wealthy even if you are not yet rich. Study session chapter 3 summary. A friend of Robert got to hear Ray Kroc of McDonald's fame speak in 1974 at the University of Texas at Austin. Afterward, Ray agreed to join the students at their favorite hangout for a few beers. He asked the student what business was he was in. At first they laughed and then they answered he was in the business of selling hamburgers, of course. But Ray told them he was not in hamburger business but in the real estate business. He knew that the land and location of each franchise were the most significant factor in its success. Today, McDonald's is the largest single owner of real estate in the world, owning some of the most valuable intersection and street corner around the globe. Robert's friend took that lesson to heart and today owns car washes, but his business is the real estate under those car washes. So many people work for everyone else. They employ the government, taxes, and the bank mortgages. What Ray Kroc and Rich Dad knew was secret number three of the rich. Mind your business. Don't spend your whole life. Don't spend your whole life working for someone else. There is a big difference between your profession and your business. Often, Robert will ask people, "What is your business?" And they will say, "Oh, I am a banker." Then he asked them if they own the bank, and they usually respond, "No, I work there." In that instant, they have confused their profession with their business. Their profession may be a banker, but they still need their own business. Too many people spend their lives minding someone else's business and making them rich. Minding your business doesn't mean starting a company, though for some people it will. Instead, your business revolves around your asset column, not your income column. Promotions or a better job will only help you become more financially secure if the additional money is used to purchasing enough income generating assets. The primary reason the majority of the poor and the middle class are fiscally conservative is that they have no financial foundation. They have to cling to their jobs and play it safe. They can't afford to take risk. And when hard times come, many people thought were assets will not help them survive a financial crisis. That car has lost most of its values, those golf club the same. Too often, what a bank will allow a person to list as assets on financial statement are not true assets. Robert was once turned down for a loan because the bank didn't like much money he like how much money he made from rent and was concerned he didn't have a normal job, but they were fine with him listing suits and art collection and other personal assets effects as assets. Net worth isn't the measure that people think it is. Most so called assets that people base their net worth as either are not as valuable as they think. If they have gained, value will trigger taxes on the gain if they are sold. Robert tells people to start minding your own business. Keep your daytime job but start buying real estate, not liabilities. or personal effects that have no real value once they get them home. Keep expenses low, reduce liabilities, and delegate. Build a base of solid assets. Parents need to teach young people before they leave home, so that they understand what a true asset is and won't find themselves trapped in a lifestyle of debt. Robert says real assets fall into their following categories: business that do not require his presence, he owns them, but they are managed or run by other people. If he has to work there, it's not a business, it becomes his job. Stocks, bonds, income generating real estate, notes, IOUs, royalties from intellectual property such as music, script, and patents. Anything else that has value, produces income, or appreciates and has a ready market. Acquire assets that you love. Robert loves real estate and thus spend much of his time thinking about and shopping for it. If you don't like real estate, don't invest in it. Robert also loves the stock of small startup companies because he himself is an entrepreneur. Some are afraid of the risk of such small cap companies, but he sees these as the place to make fortunes. His strategy is to be out of the stock in a year. His real estate strategy, on the other hand, is to start small and keep trading up for bigger properties and delay taxes on the gain, holding real estate less than 7 years. Even while working for the Marians in Xerox, Robert minded his own business. He kept his day job but was active in his asset column, trading real estate and small stocks. The more he understood accounting and cash management, the better he was at analyzing investment and eventually building his own company. He doesn't recommend people start a company unless they realize have the desire to. Otherwise, he advises them to keep their day job and mind their business, building and keeping their asset column strong. As cash flow grow, people can indulge in luxuries, but only if the cash flow supports them. Build the asset column and let the income generating by those assets pay for luxuries. Chapter 4 Summary: The history of taxes and the power of the corporation. Chapter summary: Many people see Robin Hood as a hero, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Rich Dad did not share that opinion. He called Hood a crook. Though the popular sentiment is that rich should pay more in taxes and give it to the poor, in reality is the middle class that is heavily taxed, especially the educated upper income middle class. To understand how this happened, Robert gives a brief history of taxes in England and America. Originally, that there were no taxes, only occasional temporary leaves to pay for such things as wars. In 1874, England made income and tax permanent levy on its citizens. In America, the land were a tax on tea led to the Boston Tea Party protest and helped ignite the Revolutionary War. The adoption of the 16th Amendment in 1930 made on income tax permanent. These countries were able to get tax accepted by the majority because they were first levied only against the rich. However, although income tax was designed to punish the rich, it would up finishing those who have voted for it, the poor and the middle class. Rich Dad explained that he and Poor Dad were opposite. Poor Dad, as a government employee, was rewarded if he spent money and hired people, making his organization larger. But for Rich Dad, the fewer people he hired and the less money he spent, more he was respected by his investors. And as the government grows, so does the amount of tax dollar needed to support it. Poor Dad sincerely believed the government should help people. He and Robert's mom worked for the Peace Corps, training volunteers to go to Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. They were always seeking more grants and budgets increased so they could hire more people. For Robert, it was a challenge to work for one of the biggest capitalists in town and go home to a prominent government leader. It wasn't easy to know which dad to believe, but over time, as Robert studied the history of taxes, he saw an interesting perspective. As the government's appetite for money grew, taxes soon needed to be levied on the middle class, and from there it kept trickling down. But the rich saw an opportunity because they don't play by the same set of rule. Corporations, which become popular in the days of sailing ships, offered a way around taxes. Understanding the legal corporate structure gave the rich a steep advantage and allowed them to outsmart the intellectuals. Oh, sorry. The government ideal is to avoid having excess money. If you fail to spend your allotted funds, you risk losing it in the next budget. Business people, on the other hand, are rewarded for having excess money. Excess money and are applauded for their efficiency. And as the government continued its ideal and spent more and more money, more taxes, this time on the middle class and eventually the poor were needed. Corporation is simply a legal document that creates a legal entity. It is not really a thing, not a factory or a group of people, but it offers a lower income tax rate than individuals have. And certain expenses can be paid by a corporation with pre-tax dollar. If those who get up and work to go to work at their jobs and pay taxes could only understand the way the rich play the game, they could too. The people, the problem is the harder you work in a job, the more you must pay the government. Taxes end up punishing the very people who voted them in. Attempts to punish the rich rarely work because the rich find ways to minimum their tax burden. One such way is Section 1030 of the Internal Revenue Code, which allows a seller to delay paying taxes on a piece of real estate that is sold for a capital gain through an exchange for a more expensive piece of real estate. As long as you keep trading up in value, you won't be taxed on the gains until you liquidate. Those who don't take advantage of these savings are missing a chance to build their asset column. In all the years Rich Dad was guiding Robert, he was trying to teach him that knowledge is power, and with money comes great power that requires the right knowledge to keep it and make it multiply. Without that knowledge, the world pushes you around. The taxman is a bully who will always take more if you let him. Don't let him by making your money work for you. Smart tax consultants, the attorneys, and worth their cost. As it's still cheaper than paying the government, it's expensive to not know the law. In his mind, mid 20s, when he was just out of the Marine Corps and working for Xerox, Robert was disappointed by how much was taken out of his paychecks. It motivated him to form his first corporation in 1974 and work harder at his day job to amass as much money as possible to invest in real estate. He became one of the top salesmen at Xerox and in less than 3 years was making more in his real estate holding corporation than he was at Xerox. His company bought him his first Porsche, proof that the plan was working. The lessons he learned from Rich Dad helped him break out of the proverbial rat race at an early age, and he wants to help others do the same. Financial IQ or financial intelligence is what makes that possible. It's made up of four things: accounting, financial literacy, or the ability to read numbers and evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of any business; investing, the science and strategies of money; making money; understanding market, the science of supply and demand and the market conditions; and the law, tax advantages and protections. Understanding those legal advantages is profound when it comes to long term wealth. For instance, a corporation can pay expenses before paying taxes, whereas an employee get taxed first and must try to pay expenses or what is left. Board meeting in Hawaii, car payment and insurance and health club memberships can be pre-tax expenses for a corporations. Also offer legal protection from lawsuits. When someone sues a wealthy individual, they are often met with layers of legal protection and often find that the wealthy person actually owns nothing. They control everything but owns nothing. Robert asks those who own legitimate assets to find out more about corporations, benefit and protections. Garrett Sutton's books are among the many they can help. In summary, business owners with corporation earn, spend, pay taxes. Employees who work for corporation earn, pay taxes, spend. Summary of Chapter 5. Robert gives two contrasting examples. First, the story of Alexander Graham Bell being overwhelmed by demand for thousand, hundred thousand, 100K dollar. Western Union didn't see the opportunity and turned him down, and a multi-billion dollar industry emerged. The second example is the TV news reporting on downsizing at a local company and one terminated manager begging in front of the camera to get his job back. He had just bought a house and was terrified to lose it. Fear and self-doubt was are in all of us. Robert has been teaching professionally since 1984 and has seen it in thousands of individuals and in himself. We all have tremendous potential and we all have self doubt. Courage can make the difference in leading a successful life. Robert said that as a teacher, it broke his heart to see students who knew the answer but were afraid of to act on them. Financial genius requires technical knowledge as well as courage. Take risk, be bold. Let your genius convert that fear into power and brilliance. Advice that will terrify some because so many play it safe when it comes to their money. There are many changes ahead in our world, and developing your financial IQ allows you to see that future of change through the lens of excitement, not dread. You will see the opportunities and act on them as approved, opposed to those who allow their fear to keep them on the sideline, watching others move boldly forward. Land was wealth 300 years ago. Later, wealth was in factories and production. Today, wealth is in information, but information flies around the world at the speed of light. Changes will be faster and more dramatic. There will be a dramatic increase in the number of new multimillionaires. There also will be those who are left behind. Some cling to old ideas, and when they struggle, blame technology or the economy. What they fail is to see that old ideas are the biggest liabilities. An idea or way of doing something that may have been an asset yesterday isn't today. Robert gives an example of a woman who came to a class he was teaching using a board game he had invented cash flow. The game teaches people how money works and about the intersection of income statement with the balance sheet. Some people love the game, some hate it, and others miss the point. The woman in this example struggled to see that things she would normally think of as an asset, such as a boat, negatively affect her cash flow. She pulled a number of challenging cards and had a terrible game. In the end, she was angry and demanded a refund, refusing to see how the game reflected her. Games are a powerful way to teach as they reflect behavior and instant feedback system. Later, Robert got an update on the upset woman. She had calmed down and started seeing a slight relationship between the game and her life, a life in which she had never paid attention to her and her ex-husband's finance. She had burned because of it. The purpose of the cash flow game is to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Some do this easily, some others struggle. Those who have creative financial minds escape the rat race the fastest. Some playing the game have lots of money but don't know what to do with it. That's true in life as well. Some playing the game complain the right cards are not coming their way and just sit there. Some get a great opportunity card but don't have the money to act on it, and others have the money, get a great card but don't see it for the opportunity. It is all of these behaviors happen in real life too. Financial intelligence is simply having more options, figuring out ways to create opportunities or altering situations to work in your favor. Luck is created, so go create yours. Money, which isn't real by the way, but just what we agree it is, isn't our greatest assets. Our mind is trained it well. Millions can be made from nothing but more than ideas and agreements. Putting money away each month is a sound idea, but it can blind you what is really going on and cause you to miss opportunities for much more significant growth. In the early 1990s, the economy in Phoenix was terrible. Robert and Kim capitalized on it. Investing in real estate, he got an example of buying a home worth $75,000 for $20,000 using $2,000 as a down payment that a friend had loaned him for $200. While the purchase was being processed, he ran an advertising a $75,000 for $60,000 and the no money down. As soon as the house was legally his, sold it in minutes. Everyone was happy, and the $40,000 was credited from money in Robert's assets column in the form of a promissory note from the buyer at 10% interest. $4,000 a year in cash flow is added to income. Total working time 5 hours. And if the buyer eventually can't pay, they will simply take the house back and resell it. The math still beats saving after tax money each month. It's legal. The escrow companies handle the servicing of the payments. Robert and Kim don't have to deal with the fixing roofs or toilets because the buyer owns the house. A few years later, the Phoenix market strengthened and it wasn't worth their time to flatten out the deals, so they moved on. Market conditions may be different when you are, so the strategy may not work for you, but the example illustrates how some simple financial process can create hundreds of thousands of dollars. With little money and low risk, it is an example of money being only an agreement. Would you rather work hard, pay taxes, and save from what's left with any growth also being taxed, or take the time to develop your financial intelligence? Market go up and down, and investment come and go. The world is always handling the you opportunities of a lifetime. You simply need to be able to see them. Robert shares another example of buying a house for $40,000 in a depressed market in Portland, Oregon, and renting it out for very little profit. But a year later, the market picked up and he sold it for $95,000, reinvesting the capital gains into a 12 unit, $300K apartment house in Beaverton, Oregon. 2 years later, that was sold on the profit put into a 30 unit, $875K apartment building in Phoenix. A few years later, an investment investor offered $1.2 million for the property. Is an example of how a small amount of money can grow into a large amount. The more you develop your financial intelligence, which takes time, the more opportunities will be offered to you. Robert's philosophy is to plant seeds in this his asset column. Start small and plant seeds. Some grow, some don't. Some grow into millions from little investment. Robert and Kim also have a stock portfolio where they buy high risk speculative private companies. They are just about to go public. It's risk, but the more you develop your financial intelligence, the lower the risk becomes. The smarter you are and the better your chances of beating the odds. Some may argue that there are not real estate bargains where they are, but Robert said these there are prime opportunities everyone that are overlooked. Most people are not trained financially to recognize the opportunity in front of them. As you develop your financial IQ and begin to put it into practice, remember to have fun. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but always have fun. Don't be afraid of losing, because failure is part of process of success. There are the two kinds of investor: those who buy a packed investment from a retail outlet such as financial planner, and second, those who create investment. These are also known as professional investors. If you want to be the second kind of investor, you must develop three main skills. First, find opportunities that everyone else missed. Second, raise money. And third, organize smart people and hire those with more intelligence than you. There is always risk, so you must learn to manage it rather than avoid it. Chapter summary of lesson 6. Robert was interviewed a few years ago in Singapore by a journalist who, over the course of their conversation, revealed that she wanted to become a best selling author like him, but her novels, which everyone said was excellent, never went anywhere. Robert suggested that she take a course in sales training. That offended the reporter, who said she had a master's in English literature and didn't see how learning to sell would help her. In fact, she hated salesperson. When Robert pointed out that he is a best-selling author, not a best-writing author, she replied she would never stoop so low as to learn to sell, and left the interview. There are talented people all around us who struggle financially, just like that reporter. In the words of one businessman consultant, they are one skill away from greatness. What that means is that too many of us specialize. If we would learn and master just one more skill, our income would jump exponentially. When it comes to money, the only skill most people know is to hard work. If that reporter took some courses in copywriting as well as sales, then got a job at an advertising agency, she would learn how to get millions in free publicity, a skill she could put to use, training her next move, turning her next novel into a bestseller. When Robert came out with his first book, If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School, a publisher suggested to he changed the title to The Economic of Education, but Robert knew that title wouldn't sell. Even though he is pro education, he chose a title that was controversial because he knew it would get him on the more TV and radio shows, and it worked. When he graduated from the US Merchant Marine Academy in 1969, he was hired as a third mate on a Standard Oil flatter tanker fleet. The pay was okay, but it came with 5 months of vacation a year. It couldn't been a good career, but after 6 months, Robert quit to join the Marine Corps and learn how to fly rather than specialize as so many do, including poor dad. Robert sought out new skills. Rich dad encouraged that, telling him to learn a little about a lot. That's why Robert and his friend Mike had worked so many jobs growing up to gain a variety of experiences. Poor dad didn't understand the decision to leave the Standard Oil job. He thought Robert had gone to school to become a ship's officer, but what Rich Dad knew was that Robert went to school to learn about international trade, and he joined the Marine Corps to learn how to lead troops. That leadership skill would serve him well in whatever business he lay ahead. In 1973, Robert resigned his commission and took a job at Xerox in sales, even though he was a shy person. In fact, it was because he was a shy person that he took the job. Xerox had one of the best sales training program in the country, and there Robert overcome his fear of knocking on doors and being rejected. When he became one of the most convenient, highest producing salesperson there, he left. Robert launches his first company in 1977, selling wallets manufactured in the Far East and shipped to a New York warehouse. It was time to test his wings. Today, he still does business internationally. Most people work hard to get a secure job, focusing on pay and benefits in the long term. What they should do is seek work that will teach them the skills they will need. Are people looking to where they are headed or just until their next paychecks? In his book, The Retirement Myth, Courage S. Carwell writes on the many challenges awaiting most people in the retirement and the frightening picture of what most people's reality will be. Robert recommends a long view. Instead of simply working for money and security, take a second job to learn a skill. Many will resist this because they are not ready for change, but it's like going to the gym. You might have to talk yourself into starting, but you will be so glad you did when the workout is over. If you are unwilling to work to learn something new and instead insist on becoming highly specialized within your field, make sure the company you work for is unionized. Your specialized skills may be useless outside your field otherwise. Robert asked his students how many of them can make a better hamburger than McDonald's. Most raise their hands, but the reason McDonald's is making millions and they are not is because McDonald's is excellent at business systems. The world is full of talented poor people. They must take the time to learn more skills like McDonald's business system to succeed. Poor dad wanted Robert to become specialized even though that didn't work out well in his own life. He never understood that the more specialized you become, the more you are trapped and dependent on that specialty. Rich Dad, on the other hand, encouraged Mike and Robert to groom themselves and learn about a lot of different areas of business. For the World War II generation, it was considered bad to skip from company to company. Today, it is considered smart. It enables you to learn more and will pay dividends in the long run. The main management skill needed for success are management of cash flow, management of system, and the management of people. And most important specialized skills are sales and marketing. Communication skills such as writing, speaking, and negotiating are crucial to a life of success. These are skills Robert works on constantly, attending courses and buying educational resources to expand his knowledge. The skills of selling and marketing are difficult for most people, primarily due to their fear of rejection. The better you are at communicating, negotiating, and handling your fear of rejection, the easier life is. Become technically specialized has its strength and weaknesses. People in this category must expand their communication skills. We all must learn to be good teachers as well as good students to be truly rich. We must be able to give as well as receive. Teaching was one of the ways both rich dad and poor dad gave to others, but rich dad also gave money to his church and the charities and to his foundation. He knew that to receive money he also had to give it. Poor dad also always said that he had give money if he had extra, but he never had that extra. Rather than give and you shall receive, he believed in receive and then you give. Robert became both a hardcore capitalist who loves the game of making money and socially a responsible teacher who is deeply concerned with his ever widening gap between the haves and have not. He holds the architect educational system primarily responsible for his growing gap. Left hemisphere movement. Sorry. Study session chapter 7 summary. The five main reasons financially literate people may still not develop abundant cash flow are fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habit, and arrogance. Overcoming fear. No one likes to lose money. The only people who have never lost money in investing are those who haven't done it. Everyone has the fear of losing money. The difference is how you handle fear and losing. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage that fear. It's okay to be fearful. One way to overcome that is to start early and allow the power of compound interest to work for you. There is a staggering difference between a person who starts saving at age 20 versus age 30. But what if you don't have much time left to invest or want to retire early? Rich Dad recommends thinking like a Texan: win big, lose big. If it's your attitude toward that loss that matters. Texans are proud when they win and brag when they lose. In Robert's life, winning has often followed losing. He has never met a rich person who hasn't lost money, but they don't fear that. Don't let the fear to take them out of this game. The fall of the Alamo was a tragic military defeat, but Texans have turned them into a rallying cry. A rallying cry. Remember that Alamo to spur them on to great victories. Just like the Texans, don't worry your losses, be inspired by them. For winners, losing inspires them. For losers, losing defeats them. John D. Rockefeller once said, I always try to turn every disaster in an opportunity. Even Pearl Harbor was turned from one of the America's greatest loses to what propelled the nation into becoming a world power. Winners know that failure inspires winning, so why be afraid of failure? When it can lead to greatness, understanding that not being afraid of failure doesn't mean you can't still hate failing. Most people play not to lose when they need to be financial playing to win, and that's why so many people struggle financially. They might have a safe, a sensible and balanced portfolio, but it's not a winning portfolio. They are playing not to lose. A balanced portfolio isn't a bad thing, but it's not going to help you win big. It's not how successful investors play the game. You must be little unbalanced in the beginning, but you must be focused. Put your eggs in a few baskets and focus. Building your asset column doesn't take hard math, but it does take courage and right attitude toward failure. Overcoming cynicism, whether it's our own self doubt or the doubt of others, people in our lives, we allow that doubt to keep us from acting. We play it safe and opportunities pass us by. It often takes great courage to not let rumors and talk of doom and gloom affect your doubts and fear. But a savvy investor knows that the seemingly worst of times is actually the best of times to make money. When everyone else is too afraid to act, they pull the trigger and are rewarded. Robert shared the example of a friend who was about to buy an investment condo for a great picture but backed out at the last minute when a neighbor who wasn't an investor told him it was a bad deal. Had he stayed in it, he would have doubled his investment and started to get out of the rat race. Robert holds a small portion of his assets in tax line certificates instead of CDs. Others tell him that he shouldn't do this, but they are coming from a place of doubt. They have never done it and they are telling someone who is doing it why they shouldn't. The lowest yield Robert looks for is 16%, but people who are filled with doubt are willing to accept a far lower return. Doubt is expensive. Doubts and cynicism keep most people poor. Rich Dad like to say cynics criticize and winners analyze. Winners keep their eyes open and see opportunities everyone else missed. Real estate is a powerful investment tool for anyone seeking financial independence or freedom. It is a unique investment tool, yet every time Robert mentions real estate as a vehicle, he often hears, I don't want to fix toilets. They focus on toilets and it keeps them poor. Many people stay out of the stock market because they don't want to lose money, but they are keeping themselves for making money by closing their mind to that investment vehicle. Overcoming laziness. One of the most common forms of laziness is staying busy to take care of your health, to take care of your wealth and or your relationships. What's the cure? A little grit. That can be hard to hear because so many of us were raised to see greed or desire as a bad thing rather than saying I can't afford it. Change your mindset to how can I afford it. That offends the brain and forces it to think out of solutions. I can't afford it is a lie. The human spirit knows it can do anything. By saying you can't do it something and you are creating a conflict between your spirit and your lazy mind. How can I afford it? Creates a strong mind and a dynamic spirit. When Robert decided to exit the rat race, he asked, how can I afford to never work again? His mind started kicking out solutions, but the hardest part was fighting against the old dogma that tried to instill guilt to suppress such greeds. Without that little greed, the desire to have something better, progress is not made. Our world progresses because we all desire a better life. New inventions are made because we desire something better. We go to school and study hard because we want something better. Too much greed is bad, but a little can help spur you on. Overcoming bad habits. To be successful, you must develop successful habits. Poor dad always paid everyone else first and himself last. But he rarely had any left over. Rich dad always paid himself first, even he was short of money. He knew that creditors and the government would make a big enough flap if he didn't pay them, that it would motivate him to seek other forms of income to pay them. If he paid himself last, he wouldn't feel that kind of productive pressure, forcing himself to think about how to come up with the extra income to pay and creditors made him fiscally stronger. Overcoming arrogance. Rich dad said every time he had been arrogant, he had lost money because he thought that what he didn't wasn't important. Many people use arrogance to hide their own ignorance. Robert has found in discussion with their accountants and other investors that they will try to bluster their way through the discussion, and it becomes clear they don't know what they are talking about. Ignorance isn't a bad thing if you react to your own ignorance by educating yourself, by finding an expert in the field. Chapter 8 summary. 1 2 3 4 5 17 okay, the speech. Chapter summary. It is easy to find a great deal. It's just like riding a bike. After a little wobbling, it's a piece of cake. But when it comes to money, it takes determination to get through the wobbling. You must awaken the financial genius sleeping within order to find these great deals. Our culture has told us that the love of money is the root of all evil, that we all just need to find a profession and work hard, and the government will take care of us when we are old. The message is still to work hard, earn money, and spend it. When we run short, we can always borrow more, and that is why for so many of us, our financial genius within is asleep. But we must awaken that financial genius in order to find $1 million deal of a lifetime. It's far easier to simply find a job and work for money, but that is not the path to wealth. If you want to go against the masses, Robert offers the thought process. He goes through every day 10 steps that you can use to awaken your financial genius. The follow the ones you want or make your own. Your financial genius is up to the task. Find a reason greater than reality, the power of spirit. Many want to be rich or financially free, but they turn always away because the road seems too difficult to get there. Like a future Olympic swimmer who sacrifices time and social engagements in order to put in hours at the pool. And studying hard, people need a strong, clear goal or reason in order to push through the obstacles. A reason or a purpose is a combination of wants and don't want. Just like Robert's reason for wanting to be rich. First, his don't wants as those created he wants. He didn't want to work his whole life. He didn't want job security and a house in the suburbs. Unlike his parents, he didn't like being an employee and didn't want to stay busy working on his career to the detriment of time with loved ones, only to have government take most of what he worked when he dies. As happened with his father, what does he want? Robert wants to be free to travel the world while young and lifestyles he loves. He wants to be free and have control over his time. He wants like money to work for him. Like Robert, you must have strong enough emotional reason behind wanting to be rich to sustain your thoughts. Setbacks. Robert has lost money many times, but he kept going because his reason was strong enough. He wanted to be free by 40, but it took until he was 47. Becoming rich wasn't easy, but it wasn't that hard either. But if Robert hadn't had a strong reason behind it, it wouldn't would have been incredibly difficult. If you don't have a strong enough reason, Robert asks you to not read further as it will sound like too much work. Robert, make daily choices, the power of choice. You have the choice every day whether to be rich, poor, or middle class. Your spending habits reflect who you are. The poor have poor spending habits. Long ago, Robert chose to be rich. His friend Mike, after inheriting a healthy asset column, chose to learn how to keep it, which is not the default situation when rich families pass on their asset to the next generation. Most people choose not to be rich. They tell themselves they are not interested in money, or then that they are young and don't want to worry about it, or married, other excuses. But those excuses rob them of time, their most precious asset in learning. We all have the choice every single day, and what we do with our time and money and what we put in our heads. Robert chooses to be rich and makes that choice every day. He urges people to invest first in education as our mind is so powerful tool. Once we are old enough, we all have the choice of what to put in our brains, but instead of choosing to invest in learning, most people simply buy investments. To continue his own learning, Robert goes to at least two seminars each year. In 1973, he went to a 3 day seminar on buying real estate from nothing down. He spent $385 on the seminar, and it made him at least $2 million and enabled him not to have to work for the rest of his life. Robert also likes CD and audiobooks so he can review what he just heard. One time he was listening to an investor he disagreed with, but after listening to the talk 20 times, he finally understood why the man said what he said. He was able to grasp that because he kept his mind open, even though he originally disagreed with the investor, and now he has two ways of analyzing problems, which is priceless. Robert has chosen to read or listen to what a number of people think, from Donald Trump to George Soros, and that gives him access to their mental power. When you learn something new, you often must make mistakes to fully understand it. Arrogant or critical people are afraid of taking risks, so they often won't listen to experts. It is not a question of intelligence. Intelligent people can be ignorant if they can combine their smarts with arrogance. A truly intelligent person, on the other hand, welcomes new ideas. New ideas can combine with already accumulated ones and result in something greater. Listen, learn, take a long view of wealth, not a get rich quick mentality. Invest in your greatest asset, your mind, before investing in the stocks or real estate. Third, choose friends carefully, the power of association. Robert learns from all of his friends, both those who have money seeking their knowledge and those who struggle financially. The latter group teaches him not what to do. He says several of his friends who have generated more than $1 billion or reports the same phenomenon. Their friends who have no money never ask them how they did it. They just ask for a job or a loan or both. Robert warns us not to listen to poor or frightened people. To them, when it comes to investment, the sky is always falling. They can always tell you why something won't work. Any panel of experts will only have one who says the market is going to crash and another way it is going to boom. Listen to both because both have valid points. Be true to yourself and don't go along with the crowd. This can be one of the hardest parts of wealth building. The crowd usually shows up too late to a great deal. Instead, look for a new deal, a prospect that can be frightening. Don't try to time the market. Get in position for the next wave. Wise investors buy an investment when it's not popular. They know their profits are made when they buy, not when they sell. It's all about insider training, the legal form of it being close to the inside. Having rich friends who have information on where the money is being made. You want to hear about the next boom, get in and then get out before the next burst. That's what friends are for, and that's what financial intelligence is. Master a formula and then learn a new one. The power of learning quickly. Be careful what you learn because you become what you put in your head. The masses have one basic formula: go to work, earn money, pay bills, balance checkbooks, buy some mutual funds, and go back to work. If you are not making enough, you need to change the formula. Years ago, Robert took a weekend class called How to Buy Real Estate Foreclosures. He learned a formula and put it into action, making several $1 million in the process. So he went in search of new formula. He didn't always directly use the new information, but he always just learning. Many colleges have classes on financial planning and buying traditional investment. It's a good place to start. But Robert is always searching for a faster formula. He says that why can make more in a day. That's why he can make more in a day than many will make in their lifetime. It's not just about faster formula, but learning more formulas faster. Pay yourself first. The power of self-discipline. One of all the steps, self-discipline may be the most difficult to master if it's not part of your makeup. But personal self discipline is the number one delineating factor between the rich, the poor, and the middle class. The world pushes you around and puts pressure on you, and if you don't have the tolerance for financial pressure, you will never become rich. Robert teaches students in his entrepreneurship classes that the three most important management skills for starting a business are management of cash flow, people, and personal time. These apply to everyone, not just entrepreneurs, and each of these skills enhanced by the mastery of self discipline. Though many repeat the statement, pay yourself first, few have the discipline to put it into practice. Compare these two diagrams. People who pay themselves first, job, income, asset, expenses, income. People who pay everyone else first, job, salary, expenses, done. Follow the flow of money and see how these individuals pay themselves first by investing in the asset column before paying bills. This doesn't mean you don't pay your bills responsibly, it just means to pay yourself first. You can see how paying someone else first leaves little or nothing left to invest in the asset column. It has happened to Robert and to others that there were times when the cash flow wasn't enough to cover paying themselves first in the bills. They paid themselves first anyway. It takes internal fortitude when bill collectors are screaming, but it makes investing in asset a priority and leads to becoming rich. To successfully pay yourself first, don't get into large debt position that you have to pay for. Keep your expenses low, build up assets first, then buy the big house or nice car. When you come up short, let the pressure build and don't dip into your saving or investment. Use the pressure to inspire your financial genius to come up with new ways of making more money and then pay your bills. You will have increased your ability to make more money as well as your financial intelligence. Remember that this rule does not encourage self-sacrifice or financial abstinence. It doesn't mean pay yourself first and starve. Life was meant to be enjoyed. It can call on your financial genius when you can have all the goodies of life. Get rich and pay bills. Pay your brokers well. The power of good investment advice. Many people try to save a few dollars by using discount brokers or selling their house on their own, but they only do. Good professionals save you time. They make you money. Information is priceless. A good broker should provide you with the information as well as making you money. Learn from them. In truth, what you pay them is tiny in comparison with what kind of money you can make with the information they give you. Not all brokers are created equal. Interview them and find out how much money, how much property or investment they own. Find one who has best interest at heart and treat him or her fairly. Companies have a board of directors because they know the value in having people smarter than they are around. You should have a board of directors to be an Indian giver. The power of getting something for nothing. The term Indian giver arose out of a cultural misunderstanding when the first European settlers come to the New World. If a settler was called an Indian, would give a person to a blanket. Sorry, give the person a blanket. The settler mistook it for a gift and was offended when the Indian asked for it back. The Indian got upset when the settler did not want to give it back. It was a misunderstanding of what the transaction was. In terms of investing, the asset column, it's key to be an Indian giver, that is getting your initial investment back and quickly. One example is a condo Robert bought with cash for $50,000. It rented in the high season for $2,500 and $1,000 for the rest of the year. Within about 3 years, it paid for itself. In essence, Robert's original $50,000 was back in his pocket, and the asset continues to make him money months in and months out. Some don't like the risk and prefer to keep their money in a saving account, but there isn't not making anything. It's not make anything, and they also get anything. Don't get anything for free with it. For each of his investment, Robert says there must be an upside, something for free, like a mini storage, a piece of free land, stock share, a house, and there must be limited risk. Use assets to buy luxuries. The focus, power of focus. Robert loves luxuries as much as the next person, but he won't borrow money for them. Instead, focusing on the asset column to create the money to buy those luxuries, he shares the example of a friend whose teenager son wanted a car. Rather than buy it first, buy it himself, or have the son use his saving for it. The father gave him $3,000 and some information on the stock market and told him he couldn't use that $3,000 directly to buy a car. He had to invest it. And when he had made $6,000, he could use that for a car, and the original $3,000 would go into his college fund. Although the son had yet to realize that profit, his interest and learning grew sky high. He was learning a business that would serve him well in life, growing asset in order to pay for the things he wanted. Developing cash flow from an asset column is easy in theory. What's hard in the mental fortitude to direct money to the correct use. Borrowing money is easy in the short term but harder in the long run. Choose heroes, the power of myth. One of the most powerful ways we learn as children is pretending to be our heroes. Robert continues that as an adult, though his heroes have changed, instead of pretending to be Willie Mays at bat, he channels the bravado of Trump while negotiating a deal, or the analytical skill of Warren Buffett when looking at trends. By having heroes, we tap into their genius, and because they made make it look easy, they inspire us to try. 10th, teach and you shall receive the power of giving. Robert learned from Rich Dad to give money as well as education. He would say, if you want something, you first need to give. When he was short of money, he gave it to his church and to his favorite charity whenever you feel in need of something, whether that's money, a smile, or friendship. Give it first and it will come back in buckets. This is also true in teaching. The more you teach, the more you learn. Both of Robert's dad prove that be generous with what you have and make sure you are giving for the joy that giving itself brings, not giving simply to receive. Left hemisphere moment. Use self discipline. Sorry. Chapter summary of chapter 9. For those who wants to a list to do list of action to tackle, here are some of the things Robert does in abbreviated form. Stop doing what you are doing, take a break and access what is working and what is not working. Look for new ideas, go to bookstores and search for books on different and unique subjects. The book The 16% Solution by Joel Moskowitz taught Robert something new and spurred him to action. Find someone who has done what you want to do, take them to lunch and ask them for tips and tricks of the trade. Take classes, read and attend seminars. Robert searches newspaper and the internet for new and interesting classes. Make lots of offers. You don't know what the right price is until you have a second party who wants to deal. Most seller ask too much. It is rare than that a seller ask a price that is less than something is worth. It's fun and only a game. Make offers. Someone might say yes, and make offers with escalate causes. Jog, walk, or drive a certain area once a month for 10 minutes. Robert has found some of his best real estate investment doing this. He will jog a certain neighborhood for a year and look for change. For there to be profit in a deal, there must be two elements, a bargain and change. There are lots of bargains, but it's change that turns a bargain into a profitable opportunity. It takes only a few minutes a month and does it while something else like exercising or going to and from the store. Shop for bargains in all market. Consumers will always be poor. When the supermarket has a sale, say on toilet paper, the consumer runs in and stocks up. But when the housing or stock market has a sale, most often called a crash or correction, the same consumer often runs away from it. Remember, profits are made in the buying but in the selling. Look in the right place. A neighbor bought a condominium for $100K. Robert bought the identical condominium next door for $50,000. He told Robert he was waiting for the price to go up. Robert sold him that the profit is made when you buy, not when you sell. He's shopped with a real estate robot who owns the no property of her own. Robert shopped at the foreclosure auction, having paid $500 for a class on how to do this. His neighbor thought that the $500 for a real estate investment class was too expensive. He said he could not afford the money or the time, so he waits for the price to go up. Look for people who want to buy first, then look for someone who wants to sell. Buy the pie and cut it in pieces. Most people look for what they can afford, so they took too small. They buy only a piece of the pie, they end up paying more for less. Small thinkers don't get the big breaks. If you want to rich, think big. Think big. Retailers love giving volume discounts simply because most business people love big spenders. Even if you are small, you can band together with others to negotiate for a great deal because you want to buy so many of a certain object. Small people remain small because they think small, act alone, or don't act or learn from history. All the big companies on the stock exchange started out as small companies. Colonel Sanders did not get rich until after he lost everything in his 60s. Bill Gates was one of the richest men in the world before he was 30. Action always beats inaction. Summary of final thoughts. The main reason Robert wrote this book was to share insights into how increased financial intelligence can be used to solve many of his life's common problems. He shares an example of how a friend worried about being able to save enough money for his children's college education was able to turn an initial $7,900 down payment in a house in Phoenix into a project a few years later that generates $3,000 a month in income. It took just a little money to start, and financial intelligence, education, and wisdom about money are important. Start early, buy a book, go to a seminar, practice, start small. It's what in your head that determines what is in your hands. Money is only an idea. In the world of accounting, there are three kinds of income: ordinary, earned, portfolio, and passive. Passive income, in most cases, in income derived from real estate investment. Portfolio income is income derived from paper assets such as stocks and bonds. Taxes are highest on earned income and lowest on passive. As Rich Dad would say, the government taxes the income you work hard for, and then the income your money works hard for. In Robert's second Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, he explains the four different types of people who make up the world of business. E. Employee, self-employed. B. Business owner, and I. Investor, and how people can change their quadrant. In Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, book number 3 in the Real Rich Dad series, Robert goes into more detail on the importance of converting earned income into passive and portfolio income. Robert and Kim's board games continued this direction as well, teaching what books can't. The cash flow games for adults and cash flow for kids are designed to teach players the basic investment skills of converting earned income into passive and portfolio income. They also teach the principles of accounting and financial literacy. Knowing the differences, the three income, and learning the investment skills of how to acquire the different income is basic education for anyone who strives to acquire great wealth and achieve financial freedom, a special kind of freedom that only a few will ever know. All of you were given two great gifts, your mind and your time. It's up to you to do what you please with both. With each dollar bill enter your hand, you and only you have the power to determine your destiny every day. With every dollar you decide to be rich, poor, or middle class. Choose to share this knowledge with your children, and you choose to prepare them for the world that awaits. Thanks a lot, very very lot. Thank you very much for watching this video till then. Bye bye, take care. Bye bye, thank you.